There is a peculiar moment that almost everyone has experienced, though few people ever talk about it. You've finally finished everything. The email has been sent. The dishes are done. No one is waiting for your reply. Your calendar is unexpectedly empty. For the first time all day, there is absolutely nothing you need to do. You sit down. 5 seconds pass. Then, almost as if someone else has taken control of your body, your hand reaches for your phone. Not because it rang, not because you remembered something urgent, simply because stillness lasted long enough to become uncomfortable. Perhaps you scroll for a minute. Perhaps you reorganize your desk. Perhaps you suddenly remember a chore that felt entirely unimportant 30 seconds ago, but now seems strangely essential. The activity hardly matters. What matters is that silence rarely gets the chance to finish introducing itself. For years, I assumed this was simply what modern life had done to us. Too much technology, too much information, too little attention. There is certainly some truth in that explanation. But the older I get, and the more psychology and neuroscience have taught us about the human mind, the less convinced I am that distraction is the real story. I think something quieter is happening, something older, because what fascinates me isn't that we reach for something. It's why emptiness feels like something we need to escape in the first place. That question changes everything. Most conversations about productivity begin with discipline. Most conversations about mindfulness begin with presence. Both assume the same thing, that sitting quietly should come naturally, and if it doesn't, we're somehow doing it wrong. But what if rest isn't difficult because you're impatient? What if it's difficult because your nervous system learned, years ago, that movement was safer than stillness? That possibility invites a much kinder conversation, one that begins not with judgment, but with curiosity. Several years ago, psychologists conducted a deceptively simple experiment. Participants were invited into a quiet room with no phone, no books, no music, and nothing to occupy their attention except their own thoughts. Many people expected the experience to be relaxing. Instead, something unexpected happened. A surprising number became deeply uncomfortable after only a few minutes. Some even chose to give themselves a mild electric shock rather than continue sitting alone in silence. At first, the finding sounds absurd, until you stop thinking about the brain as a machine designed for peace. It isn't. The brain is designed for prediction. When the outside world becomes quiet, another part of the mind quietly steps forward. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network. Despite its technical name, it performs something profoundly human. It wanders. It remembers. It rehearses conversations that never happened. It imagines futures that may never arrive. It searches old wounds for unfinished meaning. It asks questions we didn't know we were avoiding. This is why silence doesn't feel the same for everyone. For one person, it's spacious. For another, it's crowded. Not because one mind is healthier than the other, but because no two nervous systems have lived the same life. Perhaps this is one of the most compassionate ideas psychology has given us. We don't always repeat what we enjoy. We often repeat what once helped us survive. A child growing up in unpredictability learns to scan the room before they even know they're scanning it. A teenager praised only when they achieve begins confusing accomplishment with safety. An adult who spent years solving everyone else's problems may discover, decades later, that doing nothing feels strangely threatening. None of these patterns are conscious. They become the background music of a life, invisible enough to mistake for personality. This is why I hesitate whenever someone says, "That's just the way I am." Sometimes it is. But sometimes what we call personality is simply adaptation that has become so familiar we can no longer see it. And adaptation deserves understanding before it deserves correction. The irony, of course, is that the very people who struggle to slow down are often the same people who build remarkable things. They create. They notice opportunities. They connect ideas before anyone else does. Their momentum changes lives, including their own. The strength and the struggle are rarely separate stories. They usually share the same roots. That's the paradox of being human. The qualities that protect us can also exhaust us. The habits that help us succeed can quietly keep us from hearing ourselves. Which is why the question worth asking isn't, why am I like this? It's, what has this part of me been trying to do for me all these years? That question carries no accusation, only curiosity. And in my experience, curiosity is where healing usually begins. Perhaps that's what I find most hopeful about psychology. It doesn't ask us to become someone else. It asks us to become someone we finally understand. Once you understand yourself, change no longer feels like a battle against who you are. It becomes an act of compassion toward the person your nervous system was trying so hard to protect all along. If these ideas resonated with you, I hope you'll stay. Every week we'll explore another hidden pattern of the human mind, not to discover what's wrong with us, but to better understand why we've always made more sense than we realized.